South by Southwest is always an interesting mix of genre experiments, indie darlings, and some sneak peeks of larger studio films before their wider releases. Some of these movies become breakout hits, and others fade into obscurity. And 2025 is no different. Before I get to this top five, though, it's important to quickly give out a few honorable mentions. I wasn't able to catch these projects for one reason or another, but I've heard very good things about them, so they should definitely be on your radar, assuming that they aren't already. The first honorable mention is Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie. I'm pretty upset that I missed this, but thankfully it will be getting a theatrical release this year in Canada, at least through Elevation Pictures. This is a passion project with years and years of dedication from Matt Johnson and Jay McCarroll, with roots in their web series, Nirvana, the band, the show, and it's essentially a high concept, absurd mockumentary about two guys willing to do pretty much anything to book a gig. And from the reaction in Austin, it seems to have exceeded everyone's expectations. Next, we have Friendship, which is probably the most well known film I'll be talking about here. I've somehow managed to miss it at TIFF, where it made its world premiere, and then now again at South by Southwest. But such is life. It stars Tim Robinson and Paul Rudd in a friendship breakup movie, which brings some of Robinson's I think you should leave comedic styling to the big screen. Thankfully, A24 will be releasing this one widely in theaters come May of this year. The last honorable mention is The Rivals of Anzia King. This film brings us Matthew McConaughey in his first major role in 6 years, as he plays a beekeeper slash bluegrass musician in a crime revenge drama set in rural Oklahoma. I have plenty of faith in director Andrew Patterson, and it seems like, based on, again, the reactions from this film, that Matthew McConaughey's performance has been worth the wait. Okay, time for the top 5 films of South by Southwest 2025. At number 5, we have Bunny. Bunny is a festival film in all of the best ways. It's scrappy and chaotic and completely magnetic. It really does draw you in. It's set in an East Village tenement building and follows Bunny, who is a beloved hustler having a pretty bad day. We follow him and his friends as they hide dead bodies and dodge cops, all while keeping things going within their housing complex. Along the way, we meet a pretty incredible bevy of characters, including Airbnb guests and estranged family members, and even a rabbi. This is director Ben Jacobson's directorial debut. He approaches the project without any hint of pretension. Instead of trying to create an overly polished drama, he really leans into the messiness and the unpredictability of the story, which brings us, the audience, into each and every moment on screen. It's a true blast from start to finish, and it becomes impossible not to root for this ragtag group of friends, however flawed they may be. Number 4 is Hallow Road. Hallow Road comes from director Babak Anvari, who is most well known for his 2016 film Under the Shadow. And while I didn't have the chance to sit down with him for a formal interview, in my brief conversation I did have with him, he really is one of the most down-to-earth and genuine filmmakers that I've chatted with. In Hallow Road, he brings this sort of creeping unease that we've seen in his previous work into this new film, albeit with a different kind of structure. We are essentially locked inside this car with two parents who are experiencing their worst possible nightmare over a telephone call. The film follows Rosamund Pike and Matthew Rhys as they're trying to reach their teenage daughter who has been in a car accident before someone else does. Anvari plays with the format of the film in some interesting ways. The outside scenes are shot on 16mm film, which gives a much more kind of raw and naturalistic feeling. But then when we switch back to these scenes within the car, we have crisp digital shots. And as the film progresses, Anvari also plays with camera angles, kind of moving from pretty traditional two shots and medium close shots to some extreme close-ups and more abrupt camera movements. The car itself becomes this psychological prison, and the forest that's at the end of the road represents much more than first meets the eye. To be honest, Hallow Road is kind of difficult to talk about in a ton of depth without going into spoilers, but what I will say is that I'd recommend keeping the movie rolling into the credits for a little Easter egg. Number 3 is Together. Together initially premiered at Sundance earlier this year and made its Texas premiere at South by Southwest. It's Michael Shank's directorial debut, and as far as debuts go, it is quite bold and ambitious. The film stars Dave Franco and Alison Brie as a couple struggling to redefine themselves after moving to the countryside. Franco and Brie are, of course, a real-life couple, which was probably for the best here, considering that some days on set they were literally stuck together for hours at a time and had to do things like take bathroom breaks together, which probably wouldn't have been ideal if the leads were not so comfortable with one another. From the opening shots, we are put into a world of tension, and we follow a search party, and we see a pair of dogs drinking from a mysterious fountain, but no explanations are given. Instead, we quickly cut to a hilarious going away party, and these sort of quick and sharp tonal shifts are present throughout the runtime of Together. This sort of tonal inconsistency is always risky, but Shanks manages to pull it all together here. It is a film about the horrors of codependency, which Shanks talked about at the South by Southwest premiere, sharing with us that his partner of 16 years had an interesting reaction to reading the script for the first time, basically saying something along the lines of, well, this is deeply unsettling. But don't worry, she apparently loves the film now, as I think many other people will. Together has been acquired by Neon in a bit of a bidding war against other companies like A24. They paid $17 million, and they've already been hitting the ground running with their marketing prior to the August 1st wider release. In fact, I left the South by South premiere with a packet of lube in hand, courtesy of the Neon team. No spoilers. Number 2 is The Perfect Neighbor. Director Gita Ganber has brought us a very innovative documentary, the only documentary I have on this list, relying almost exclusively on real body camera footage. This also had its world premiere at Sundance before moving to South by Southwest. The use of this body cam footage so perfectly deconstructs an event that was tragic and very much avoidable. What starts as a relatively small neighborhood dispute spirals dramatically into horrifying escalation, with Florida's stand your ground laws hovering ever present over the subject matter on screen. The Perfect Neighbor is really a documentary built in the edit. I mean, all documentaries are built in the edit to varying degrees, but instead of relying on traditional talking head interviews Gandier and editor Veridiana Lieberman so beautifully weave together footage in a way that allows the neighborhood itself to almost become a character, and so beautifully brings us through these peaks and valleys of emotion. The occasional shots that aren't body camera footage are not the overly stylized B-roll that we've come to expect from Netflix true crime documentaries, which is somewhat ironic with what I'll get to in a minute, but instead incorporates almost exclusively static and often macro shots of everyday neighborhood elements like a basketball net or a garden. The irony comparing this to traditional Netflix style documentaries is that Netflix has acquired the rights to The Perfect Neighbor, and while they haven't always done the best job of really supporting their top tier documentaries, like how Daughters from last year just seemed to disappear a day or two after it hit the platform, it's still great to hear that this project has the very real potential to reach a wide audience. The number one film of South by Southwest 2025 is Satisfaction. Satisfaction is a film that takes its time and is incredibly intentional in its portrayal of pain and lingering trauma. I had the absolute pleasure of chatting with Bernova and Laird, and they were able to share some insights into the film and what it was like working with one another. Director Alex Bernova spent almost a decade building Satisfaction, writing draft after draft after draft, and painting individual frames in watercolor to understand the film's look and tone, and this attention to detail is evident in what we ultimately see. The film follows the relationship between two British musicians, Lola and Philip, played by Emma Laird and Finn Whitehead. It moves through dual timelines, giving us some hints to their past, while also illustrating the unspoken effects of that past in the current day. Bernova and her cinematographer craft some striking visuals that reinforce Lola's very fractured psychological state. A lot of the film is filmed on location in Greece, and these scenes that are set on the Greek Isles are defined by sharp lines and cool blues of the surrounding architecture, which mirrors some of the rigid constraints that Lola feels within herself and her relationship. This feeling extends to choices in framing, with Lola often placed at the bottom of the frame or shot from a high angle, showing her vulnerability, and in contrast, Philip is often framed from below, which reinforces this sort of power that he's had through their relationship, and at times they play with a sense of transparency, which apparently was a happy accident, but still very aptly showcases how Lola isn't fully there in the moment. The success of this film, though, is largely on the shoulders of Emma Laird. She gives what might be the strongest singular performance of the festival, and while she might not be a household name yet, she is undoubtedly on her way to becoming one. She has several projects that have either shot or are in pre-production, and I won't name everyone that she's working with, but she's going to be starring alongside folks like Adam Driver, Ray Fiennes, Jeff Bridges, and Aaron Taylor Johnson, and that's quite honestly just scratching the surface. There are some projects that have not even been announced yet. Ultimately, in Satisfaction, Laird shows the pains of silence, and Bernova's direction doesn't offer the audience an escape from her pain, and instead challenges us to look inward and address our own silences. Subscribe, like, comment, all those things are super helpful to me as a real life human being. So thank you in advance for doing that, and I hope that you have an absolutely wonderful day, week, month, year, and onward. Cheers.